Hi. Yes, it is being recorded. Perfect. So hi everyone. Happy afternoon. My name is Kat Ratajczak and I am the Best Starts for Kids Capital Program Manager. Today I will be giving you a presentation on the Priority 1 funding round, which has been open for a few weeks now. We're in the pre-proposal period. Here to give you information, answer questions. So hopefully this can be really productive. You will also get a chance to meet TA providers later on in this presentation. I will cue you guys when it's your turn, and you'll also get a Zoom grants tutorial from the lovely Tiffany. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So like I said, I'll give you an intro to the program overall. I will share about the RFP itself, so a little bit of background, the timeline, criteria, and then what we're really here for is a Q&A where you can ask your questions and I can give you answers. So what is the vision of Best Starts for Kids? So Best Starts for Kids overall as a levy has the vision of seeing babies born healthy, kids thrive, and young people grow up to be happy, healthy, successful adults. So those 4 pillar words are happy, healthy, safe, and thriving. That's sort of our Northern Star. And Best Starts for Kids is a program under the larger Best Starts for Kids levy, specifically the Best Starts for Kids levy renewal BSK 2.0. And we provide contracts for renovation and new construction of facilities, specifically that serve low-income children and BIPOC communities. So overall, the program will fund recreational, early learning, and childcare facilities, as well as community centers and affordable housing. So over the 5 years that this program is funded by the levy. And Best Starts for Kids Capital is guided by an implementation plan that prioritizes certain areas that we want to fund. So we specifically want to fund facilities that provide culturally responsive youth programming to target populations of low income and BIPOC communities. We want to have geographically dispersed projects. And then we also want to fund facilities that are multi-use, intergenerational, and located in rural or low-income areas. So these are sort of some priority areas that we look for in the funding round. And overall within BSK Capital, there are 4 priorities. So the priority that we'll be talking about today is Priority 1. So I'll skip the sort of high level for that, but I want to give you guys a little bit more context on other priorities as well. So Priority 2 has already, that process has already gone through. That was, there's an RFP in 2023, and that was for renovation and repairs to all facility types. And in the future, we will be funding Priority 3 and Priority 4, which will focus on expanding childcare and early learning facilities, and then eventually creating affordable family housing with youth development component on site. So those are for the future, but today we'll be talking about Priority 1. So the purpose of this priority is to fund new construction or renovation or capital planning grants for community or recreational centers. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of that in some future slides. But we all probably have a bit of an understanding about what new construction or renovation means. So I want to give a brief definition on what a capital planning grant is, since it's a bit more unique. So in this funding round, there's the option to get funding for a capital planning grant of up to $100K. And a capital planning grant funds any pre-development activities. So anything before you break ground. This list is not necessarily exhaustive, but it paints a good picture. So anything from site research and selection, due diligence and feasibility, scoping, cost estimating, bidding, working with your engineer and architect, permitting and inspections. So think of it as anything before you break ground. So it's essentially a grant to help get you started. Also, I'm sorry if this pop-up is being annoying. There we go. So in summary, we will be making, or we have made available $7.2 million for Priority 1 projects. for new construction, renovation, or capital planning grants for community and rec centers. Pre-proposals, which help us determine eligibility of projects, are due on Monday, January 8th, so next Monday. After that, we will be looking at those pre-proposals to determine eligibility, and then folks that are eligible will be submitting proposals that will be due March 20th. And we have some funding request limits, so up to $5 million for construction projects, either new construction or renovation, and up to $100K for planning grants. So this is sort of the RFP in a snapshot. And this may look a little bit overwhelming, but I want folks to just have the whole timeline in front of you so that I can kind of walk you through it. This is also, of course, available in the RFP document and on Zoom grants as well. But as I indicated, we're in the pre-proposal process, the process by which we determine if projects are eligible. Those are due by Monday, January 8th at 2 p.m. PST. Following the submission of pre-proposals, I will review those until February 2nd, and then we will notify eligible applicants if they're eligible, and also if they're not. After that, eligible applicants will be able to move forward with the larger RFP process, the full proposal, which will be due on the 20th of March. After that, responses will be reviewed. There's a bit of a larger period of time to accommodate for sort of a expected large volume of potential proposals. So review period would be until about late April. And then we predict that the notification of selected and non-selected applicants would be in summertime 2024. So this is the sort of two-pronged pre-proposal and proposal period timeline. So when all is said and done, we're expecting folks to have their awards in summer. Now about the actual sort of meat of the application, I'm splitting it into minimum qualifications and desired qualifications. And that really sort of follows the pre-proposal and proposal period two-pronged approach. So minimum qualifications are things that we are going to need from applicants to be determined eligible, and they are as follows. So you are completing an eligible project type. So that is new construction or renovation or a request for a capital planning grant. The next thing is that you will need to be a community center or a recreational center, so an eligible project type. And we have definitions for that, both at the end of this presentation and in the RFP document itself in the glossary. We also ask that requests do not exceed those limits of $100K for capital planning and $5 million for construction, either new construction or renovation. A minimum qualification is also that the site is owned or leased, and if it is leased, you must have owner support of the proposed construction or renovation. Beyond that, you have to serve King County, communities in King County, and we also ask that you serve priority populations, so low-income children, BIPOC communities, rural areas, or areas without physical access to similar communities. So if you meet these qualifications, your pre-proposal will be determined eligible. Beyond that, there are desired qualifications, and these are things that will make your sort of bolster your application, make it more competitive, show alignment with our implementation plan and what we're trying to fund. So some desired qualifications would be that you run a facility that is multi-use, intergenerational, or has outdoor covered space. And it's not that you have to have all of these things, but one of these things would be great, right? Another desired qualification would be that you have a demonstrated ability to assemble a design, architecture, engineering, and or contractor team, right? If you or someone you're contracting with, a consultant, some members of your team have experience with that, that's something that we look at as positive. Same goes for applicants that can manage a construction project or have financial systems to track income and expenditures or report performance measurements, right? So sort of the bread and butter of the work. Some other desired qualifications would be that you're leveraging other capital investments, including other county capital investments, or that you're hosting cultural responsive programming or permanent low cost or free programming for low-income households. So those are desired qualifications. And there are also some activities that we will consider ineligible as well. So I want to note that for you. So ineligible activities would include non-construction materials and equipment for construction projects. As a whole, the program does not accept requests for retroactive funding. So if you have completed work in the past, we're not able to provide those funds. So ultimately, we cover costs that are from the contract start date forward. We don't cover transportation or travel, staffing costs or other salaries. So think of that as overhead, emergency funding, or mortgage or utility bills. So again, overhead items. And who should apply? So it's a wide range. Basically, if you are serving communities in King County, we encourage you to apply. So you can be a nonprofit, you can be a CBO, you can be a tribe, a for-profit, a public agency. Anyone is good to apply in that regard. Who should apply? People that meet minimum qualifications for this RFP. And we do encourage small nonprofits and CBOs to apply as well. So with all of that in mind, how do we actually look at submitted applications and score them? So we have a scoring rubric and a scoring guide, both that are available in Zoom grants. So if you look at the library, you'll actually see the scoring guide. I believe that's attachment F, that really goes into this rubric that you're seeing on the screen and gives written explanation as to how we score. So there's multiple components of our scoring guide, and all are weighted based on importance, for lack of a better word, sort of alignment with our implementation plan. So at a high level, it's split into feasibility and scope, proposed budget, organizational experience, community served, and equity and social justice, all adding to a possible of 145 points. And all of these sections of the scoring guide correspond directly with questions that are asked in the application questions. So in the scoring guide, you will see the associated application questions with the respective component of the scoring guide itself. So again, just want folks to sort of have eyes on this and understand that this is the process we take. A review panel of subject matter experts take when looking at your applications. So what will you need to submit? So beyond the pre-proposal and the proposal questions, right, if you're determined eligible, we do require documents to be submitted in Zoom grants as well. So the following documents are what we require. And these are essentially just helping us to determine feasibility, scope, get a better picture of your project as a whole. So we ask for project timeline and budget. When we're talking about organization, we're looking for financials, an org chart, and staff resumes. And then we also ask for site control, so a lease or a deed. And again, the specifics are outlined in the RFP document itself. And then we also ask for a site plan and site photos. So there is, there is quite a few documents that we ask to be submitted in order to be considered for funding for this program. So how to apply? So all applicants must complete a pre-proposal by Monday, and only projects that are determined eligible will be able to move forward. We really encourage folks to read the complete RFP document prior to starting the proposal. Of course, if you are if you're working on a pre-proposal, you've likely already started, but really encourage folks to go ahead, go into the library, go into the full RFP document, read through everything so you have a comprehensive understanding. Then proposals, pre-proposals, and proposals are submitted via Zoom grants or via email. And we really encourage folks to submit materials early and check Zoom grants often to ensure that there's no lag, that you didn't think you submitted and didn't actually. And at the end of this presentation, we also will be giving a Zoom grants tutorial just so folks can get a little more comfortable with that. And then last but not least, we do provide technical assistance. So free technical assistance is available to applicants to really support you through the process and eliminate barriers. And we actually have, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 1 providers here today, but I see Jing right now. If you want to introduce yourself and give a little background, that would be super helpful as well.
Sure. Thanks and welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone here. I'm Jing Fong and I'm with RHL Consulting. I and a team of others provide not only technical assistance, but also capacity building with BSK. I can't encourage you enough to make use of this service, which the county in its wisdom provided for the sake of equity. And so even if you have a grant writer, or even if this is your first grant, it's really helpful to have an extra set of eyes and ears and someone you might consider your writing buddy as you put together what can be a really overwhelming experience. So I encourage you to do this. We've got a great cadre of TA folks, and start early.
Super. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is it okay if I introduce myself as well?
Yes, absolutely.
So my name is Leslie Stradamero. I'm with Cloudbreak Collective. I'm also a TA provider, and I would just really echo that both as providers, we love meeting with the organizations and helping and bringing our perspective. And I think what I've seen is it's so valuable as an organization receiving that TA assistance. We don't do the grant writing for you, but we are sort of an external eye on your application and can say, maybe put an example here, like, could you explain more about this, and just help you make a stronger, more compelling application, talk through any questions you have. And so we love hearing from organizations that are applying. So please take advantage of this service. It's a really wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Leslie. And sorry I didn't see you. I'm in presentation,
no worries.
so I only see Emmy and Jing right now. Great. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Tiffany to give a brief Zoom grants tutorial, and then we'll go ahead and go into a question and answers portion. So here, I'll stop sharing my screen. And Tiffany, if you want to introduce yourself, thank you for being here.
Yep, no problem. Let me try to share my screen now. Can everyone see?
It's just loading on my end, but
okay.
I think it will be here shortly.
It seems frozen on my end.
Yeah, same.
See. Oops. Okay, I'm going to stop my video and then try to share.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay. Is it working now? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany No. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a contract specialist with the Contracts and Procurement Unit within DCHS. So when you click on the Zoom Grants link, it'll take you to this home screen or landing screen, and you'll want to sign in the top right-hand corner. And in order to apply, you will need a Zoom Grants account. So if you don't have one, you can click on New Zoom Grants account here, also on the right-hand side, and create your account in order to sign in. At the top here, these blue buttons are pretty important. They allow you to show and hide different sections of Zoom Grants. So you just click on the button to see each of these sections, like overview, who can apply, and then it'll open each section below. Kat mentioned the library is super important, so make sure that you are looking at that. I'm just scrolling through so you can see what the library looks like. This is where all the important RFP documents can be found. You'll want to download the full RFP document and familiarize yourself with everything that's in there, as well as all the attachments. And then if any changes are needed or any updates need to be made to the RFP, you can find those in each of these amendments here that are issued throughout the RFP. Scrolling down to these blue tabs, this is really the application portion of Zoom Grants. So you'll start out with the summary tab, and this is where we collect basic information about the applicant, such as name, telephone, and email. And then scrolling down here is a question where we ask organizations to let us know what zip codes they plan on serving clients for. And this is helpful for us to inform King County Council that this is where our services are going or are able to go. So you'll want to make sure that you fill this out. And to advance through the application, you can either click on the next button that's on the bottom of the screen here, or you can also scroll to the top where the tabs are and click through these tabs to advance. So next up, we have general questions, and these are unscored. You'll fill out the text boxes here and then move on to the next tab. This is the real substantial portion of the application questions. And again, you'll fill out your responses in the text boxes and advance to the next tab on Zoom Grants. One thing to note is that Zoom Grants does not have a save button. So as you're filling out your responses in any of the text boxes or check boxes, you just click out of the box, and then a saving icon should pop up in the middle of the screen. There are different ways for you to enter in text for Zoom Grants. One of the recommended ways is to type out or draft your response in a word processing program like Word or Notepad, and then copy and paste from there into Zoom Grants. And that helps so you can have a copy of your response in case there are any technical glitches with Zoom Grants where it doesn't save or something. Another thing to note is that Zoom Grants does not accept special characters or formatting. So if you are copying and pasting, you just really want to be mindful that you are copying and pasting plain text. Sometimes Zoom Grants will have a saving error where the saving icon will just stay in the middle of the screen. And if that happens, you'll want to just click refresh on your browser and see if it saved the content that you put in or not. This is just a downside to Zoom Grants that we're aware of, and there's no solution to fix it, unfortunately. So again, make sure that you're providing responses to each and every question asked. Zoom Grants won't allow you to submit the application unless all responses have been provided. Another helpful hint is the maximum characters notation at the bottom of each text box. It'll count down and show you how many characters you have remaining, so you know how long your response can be. And then just going back to the top, there are documents that are being requested with this RFP, so make sure that you are downloading templates and then uploading by utilizing the upload field on the right-hand side. And when you're done, you'll have a button that allows you to submit the application, and then you should get an email confirming that the submission was received. And that's it for the Zoom Grants walkthrough. Are there any questions specific to Zoom Grants that I can help with?
If not, thank you so much Tiffany, for doing that tutorial. Really appreciate it.
Great.
And thank you. And so we can go ahead and move forward to the Q&A. So if folks have any questions, happy to answer. You can also put it in the chat if need be. So I'm gonna look at the chat box. So, oh, I see a hand. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, by the way, for providing all this helpful information. It's always so helpful hearing from BSK. So I had a question about project eligibility. I noticed in the project information section that there was preference for facilities that include covered outdoor spaces. And my CBO is actually wanting to apply essentially to put in a covered outdoor space to a multi-use recreational center, and was wondering if it was eligible to apply for that, and then, you know, mark that that's what we're basically looking to get funding for. We, as a renovation to an existing community center.
Yeah, that would certainly be eligible, and I would say indicate as such in the narrative of your application. So ultimately, like with multi-use intergenerational outdoor covered space, these are things that are outlined in the implementation plan as desirable. And so if you're sort of speaking to that with your project, yeah, I would just highlight that in your narrative response. It's a great question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Emily.
Kat, Kat, I was going to say, Jing, I had an earlier question.
Yes.
About
Yes.
Example of non-construction equipment, and if they can update or repair that equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Thanks, Dave. So an example of non-construction equipment would be, let's say you are operating a community center and you need computers. We would not be able to fund those computers. That we would not be considering that a construction equipment item, right, or material or equipment item. But when it comes to updating or repairing equipment in the facility, that's a little bit of a different conversation. So sort of the example that I give is, let's say you're a rec center and you need to resurface a basketball court. Those basketball hoops would be considered a construction material, right? So there's a little bit of that differentiation when it comes to, like, is this really an aspect of the work, the construction work that is being completed, or is this an item in the facility? And I hope that that sort of helps to paint that picture.
It does, but I'm also thinking that I did hear someone ask this question before, and I apologize if it's in your.
No worries.
But what if it was updating like a security system or lighting?
So if there was narrative response indicating why that lighting needed to be repaired or that security system needed to be repaired, for instance, there are demonstrated security problems or concerns, and implementing or updating that system as a part of rehabilitation was necessary for the greater project, then that could be considered.
Okay, because it just gets gray, because even with security,
yeah,
that could be preventive or perceived as opposed to waiting until something happens.
Yeah, and so that's where the narrative, the strength of your narrative response is very helpful. And again, all of the projects are looked at sort of piece by piece. And so understanding the larger picture is helpful, because yes, there is some gray area when it comes to is this equipment or is it not? And so that's a really great question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and answer the couple other questions in the chat, and then Emily and Annie, I'll go ahead and get to you. Or actually, Annie, your question is next. So Annie asks, is site control required to be eligible? Chief Seattle Club is at the early stages of planning a community center for American Indians, Alaska Native children, youth, and families. We don't have a site identified yet since we are at the community visioning stage. So that's a great question. I would encourage you to apply for a capital planning grant since you're in such preliminary stages of the project, because that's exactly what the capital planning grant is for. So for the new construction and renovation, we do require site control, whether that be a lease or a deed. Thank you, Annie. Do you have anything else that you would like to ask?
Nope, that's perfect. Thanks, Katrina.
Super. Thank you. So Ashley from El Centro says, can we submit more than one proposal? I might be curious to have a little bit more information. Theoretically, if you are, I'll say what we would not allow. We would not want folks to apply for both a capital planning grant and a construction grant. So if that's sort of what's being considered, I would say no. If you are looking at multiple different sites, you could certainly submit more than one pre-proposal, though we are looking at a wide array of applications and wanting to provide geographically dispersed and equitable funding. So I'm not sure if that sort of helps to answer your question, or sort of what direction that question is going. So yeah, Ashley, if you want to add to that, that could be good.
Nope, that answers it. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, super. Thank you. Jenny says, when/where can we find this meeting recording? Thank you. Yeah, so I can email it out to you specifically if you want it soon. Otherwise, it can be provided on BSK, the BSK webpage. So yeah, if you want it specifically or sooner for any reason, go ahead and shoot me a message. Okay, so then we have 4 more questions in the chat and then I'll get to Emily. Okay, is there a date by which construction would have to begin on the project from Ravi? So the short answer is no, but ultimately, every project will be different. So we will enter contracting with each awarded entity, and the timeline of your construction project will be reflected in our contracting process. That's something that we'll work together on project by project. So no, we do not say, by April 2025 you have to be done, or by January 2020. I guess it is 2024, right? We don't give a date for all of the projects. Okay, Rosie says, since the total available is 7.2, it seems like asking for 5 million would be unreasonable. Can you comment on this, as well as how much priority will be placed on leveraged additional funding? Okay, so 2-parter there. So yes, so there is $7.2 million available. That $5 million limit is not necessarily what is going to happen, but it is what we have as guidance in the implementation plan. Ultimately, we project funding a handful of projects for smaller amounts, just due to the fact that there will be sort of a larger stream of applications. And so, yes, you are right. We don't necessarily foresee providing a full 5 million to any one provider. And then how much priority will be placed on leveraging other funding? So similarly to the question about, outdoor covered space, this is just a desired qualification. And it would be one component of many within the scoring guide that we would look at, right? So if you're leveraging, that would be desired in the context of a project that is already fitting sort of the mold that we're trying to see, right? So meeting minimum qualifications and meeting other desired qualifications as well. I'm not sure if you have more specifics on that, but ultimately there's many components at play when we're looking at scoring. So I would encourage you to look at the scoring guide as well. So if there's not follow up on that part, I'm happy to move to the next. So Beth says, is the deadline on Monday for only the pre-proposal? So yes, Beth, only the pre-proposal is due on Monday. The full proposal is due on March 20th.
Well,
and we will not. Yeah.
Sorry, just to
No
follow up.
worries.
So where on Zoom Grant, it says like submit pre-proposal, that's where it stops, right?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So all those other questions that you just showed, those are
Yes.
due later if our proposal gets approved.
That's exactly right.
That is what I thought I understood. I was like, I can. pull
Hopefully it's not the
together.
whole thing. Yes, absolutely.
but I really don't want to by Monday. So that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, super.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you. And Mohammed, unfortunately, we will not be extending the pre-proposal due date. I'm going to go ahead and go to Emily, and then we will go ahead and look at the other items that have come into the chat. But Emily, you've had your hand up for a minute, so happy to answer your question.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I would have put it in the chat, but I'm on my phone. It's just,
yeah, no worries.
Clunky fingers. So I'm with the Vashon Food Bank, and Vashon Youth and Family Services is also on this call.
Yeah.
We are both in the process. Youth and Family Services has actually already done so. But the food bank will be building a new facility entirely on the property owned by the Vashon United Methodist Church, whereas the Youth and Family Services has already relocated some of their programming to that same property. So we're functionally and in concert with other social service agencies on the island building a community center. So I think we check all the boxes for, the multi-use, intergenerational, outdoor covered space, all of those. I just wanted to make sure that kind of a collaborative ask. So we're all unique organizations. We don't share finances or just a lot of overlapping programming and, intention to collaborate. So making sure that a collaborative application with one lead agency, of course, is, eligible. I'm not sure exactly the way it would be structured, but is there opportunity for like pass-through funds, or like one agency would be responsible for spending and, requesting reimbursement for all the funding, right?
Yeah. Yes. So yes, multiple organizations can apply together. We will just ask there to be one point organization. So yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that is great. And I guess the second question is, let's see, I assume the answer is yes, but will partial grants be awarded? So, if we request a certain amount, but based on the number of applications you all get, if you can't award, that full amount, will partial requests be awarded based on the capacity of the BSK fund? Or should we target our ask with the expectation that we would get 100%?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. And we take the approach that we prefer to fully fund less projects than partially fund more projects.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to the chat. So Chris from Bellwether says, if we apply for a planning grant in this round, when is the next opportunity to apply for a construction grant? So it's a great question. So we're predicting that would be in 2025. We don't have a time frame when in 2025 just yet, but it would not be for another year or so. Emmy says, are there restrictions on types of renovations or repairs on leased buildings? For example, roof repairs? No. So in our past round, we were focusing on critical health and safety repairs, which was very rigid, sort of just a predetermined list of things that we could fund. But no, we don't have specific renovation requirements. Of course, we will look at all applications, sort of the meat of the application, to make sure that it makes sense. It's aligned with our funding, but no, it's not that specific. And I see you're off mute, so if you have anything else to ask, I'm happy to answer.
That's all. Just wanted to thank you.
Super. Thanks so much. All right. And then Erin says, can I ask what the fund source is of this funding? How did King County generate this funding? How did DCHS decide to fund this type of effort? So Best Starts Capital is a component of the Best Starts for Kids levy, which is a levy. So that is how, that's sort of what we're operating within. And this is an add-on to the existing levy. So it was renewed by voters, and this component, this program specifically, was added to Best Starts for Kids. So we are in the second year of BSK Capital existing as a part of the levy. I hope that helps to answer your question. Ashley.
Hi, mine is a project specific eligibility.
Sure.
Would renovating a food bank within a community center be eligible? Obviously, it benefits families, children, and youth. But I wasn't sure.
If it is a resource provided by the community center and that it is an aspect of the community center and within the community center itself, then that could be considered. But of course, we would need to look at, again, at the project as a whole to make sure that that sort of checks out. But hearing sort of just the high level, yeah, if it's part of the community center, then yes. If it's next door and sort of affiliated, that's where you could get kind of into murky waters.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course, happy to answer that. Any other questions from folks? Erin, there we go. Sorry,
Yeah,
I did not
thank
see your
you.
hand for a second. Yeah, of course.
Thank you. So for the pre-proposal process that's due on the 8th, if, you know, as community folks or city folks, if a location has not been identified yet, is there time given in this process to find a location to maybe lease or purchase?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to apply for a capital planning grant, just because we will be looking at more shovel-ready projects for those construction grants. So that's exactly what the capital planning grant is for. If you're looking for a site, that's awesome. So I hope that helps to answer that.
It did. I think just the component for the pre-proposal, one of the questions asked, please disclose an address. And, you know, so if you don't have an address.
That's okay. That's
have an address.
Yeah, you can, I mean, you can simply just say applying for a capital planning grant or sort of just indicate that is why it may not be eligible or applicable rather. Eligible is on the mind. Okay. Thanks for your question. So Rosie says, would you consider Highlines Boscovitz Outdoor Learning Center to be a recreational center? If it meets, I don't know much about the Outdoor Learning Center, so I just want to name that. But if it meets the definition of recreation center in the RFP itself, then yes, I would consider it eligible. But theoretically, outdoor programming, community connection and learning opportunity through, you know, different activities would be considered a recreational center. I don't want to assume necessarily that that's what you do. So I would really encourage you to go ahead and look at the glossary there. I can also share my screen of the definition. Just give you a chance to look at that. 1 second. So, whoop. Let's get everyone's faces elsewhere. I'm gonna go ahead and just move the chat box to the other window. Okay, so there's the definition of a recreational center for this program. Awesome, cool. Thanks, Rosie. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing because it's much harder to monitor the chat when you're sharing a screen. Okay. Daniel says, is there a required funds match, or is this grant, or can this grant fully fund the project? No, there's not, but I would caution that it may not be likely, unless it's a very small, unless it's a very small project, that the funds from this would fund a full project. So I would really need to see the specifics of your project, but no requirement when it comes to a funds match. We have 10 more minutes, so any more questions are totally welcome. And if folks don't have any, that's okay as well. Though if any questions do come up after this meeting, I encourage you to, oh, Jing, there you are.
Hi, this isn't a question, but it's just a comment. And the comment is, I would just encourage everyone for prospective and interested applicants to keep track of the libraries, the amendments, because that's where updates take place. And I had one previous client where we almost learned the hard way to pay attention to those, because the county doesn't know who is interested or applying. So the amendments are one way to keep track if there are any updates or having to do with the RFP. So I would encourage you to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's a great note. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, and that will be in the library tab of Zoom grants. We do receive questions via email that I'm going to drop in the chat of who you have to reach out to if you do have a question. So that's in the chat now. But yes, we do put those questions into amendments. So that's always helpful. So yes, if you have any other questions, do reach out to DCHS contracts at kingcounty.gov, and we'll be getting back to you as soon as possible. Thank you everyone for your interest and for being here today. And I hope you have a lovely weekend.